Well, happy Thursday, friends. Good evening. Welcome to this edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. I'm Neal, Wavra, your host, and who is joining me tonight? We are here on a beautiful May evening at Field and Main restaurant with what looks to be a little bit of a lighter red. I don't know, I was intrigued and enticed by it prior to just going live a moment ago, and I broke one of my general kind of rules, not even a rule, but just general modes of doing these blind tastings. And I tasted it, and immediately upon tasting it, nearly choked on it. So never go back on what you're supposed to be doing. Don't deviate from the normal plan, or you'll be punished. That's the lesson I'm learning this evening. Who is joining us, though, to help correct that lesson and to help me along the way as we figure out this particular wine for this week? Eric and Wendy are here, and Candy is here. Candy is joined with Kevin and Kathy per usual, which is awesome. Welcome to all of you. Chris is with us, and Peggy hopefully with him. Great. And Jan is here as well. Bobby with you, Jan? Yep, she says yes. Allison and David are here tonight. So again, the kind of fantastic crew. Oops, we never do that, says Kristen. She's joining us this evening. I know a good many people do that and start early. I've talked to quite a few of you over the past, even this past week. We were talking, Chris and I and Courtney, about sometimes they start early, sometimes they start late. Others have childcare situations where 7 o'clock is the right witching hour where the kid needs to go to sleep, or at least get to have sort of bedtime routine. And so tasting it early and then kind of catching a little bit, snippets here and there as we get toward the end, and then rewatching it or catching the final bit a little bit later. No matter how you do it, it's okay. I'm not critiquing your method, I'm critiquing mine. And I was punished a little bit this evening to start off with by tasting before I evaluated otherwise. Hi, Jan. How are you? Great to have you with us. And Trish and Andy and Kathy are also here. We have so many Kathys on this chat, which is great. Jen is with us with Erica, the dynamic duo there joining us. And Erica, you haven't been able to join us for a while, I know, which is awesome. But your class is done for the semester, so you have your Thursdays free. Well, cheers to you for completing a semester and for joining us again. We're excited to have you with us. Do you have the wine, Erica? That's interesting, huh? What might that be? Well, should we dive into this one? What do you see, folks? This is a red. I'll help you along that way so far. The red wine with what kind of color are you seeing here? What elements are here? Is this a clear wine? Is it pale? Is it medium or deep intensity? Does it have sort of a purplish cast, a ruby cast, a garnet cast? Maybe a tawny cast? I don't think so on this one. And Erica, great. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for dinner, and we can definitely get you stocked up for the next couple weeks. And Kristen's commenting for a question about what you see. It's a clear wine for sure. It has sort of a medium intensity, maybe, palish to medium intensity. It's not super deep. Ruby, yes, Candy and Jan are both noting ruby. I think that's a fair assessment too. So kind of like a little bit of a garnet sort of rim. There's a little bit of a rim variation here. Yeah, Kristen, I was kind of headed toward that tawny, I guess, a little bit. Are you getting that too? Like, so when you're looking at the wine itself, you have the rim on the outside, and then you have the core of the wine right in the center, and there's a little bit of a variation in color. It goes from sort of that ruby in the center to a tiny bit of that tawny quality, a little browning, not like brown, not super aged, but there's a slight variation there. And the legs are pretty light. Yeah, this is not a very robust wine. They're forming, and they're forming relatively quickly, and some of these now are forming a little bit slower. So the first ones to form shot, and then the second or third ones kind of took their time getting down. So we might have a little bit of alcohol here. They're long, they stay formed. So there's, I think, moderate plus alcohol by the look of that. Oh yeah, sorry. So mine's now definitely taking its time, forming and coming down and maintaining. So we have potentially a little bit higher alcohol here. It wouldn't look like it from the visual of this that it would be very high alcohol, but let's, from the actual color, I should say, not just the visual. The visual of the legs indicates that. But the color itself doesn't necessarily indicate a real deep or rich, kind of robust, thick-skinned, ripe climate. So we're not talking about those things right off the bat from a visual perspective. But what do you smell? Woodsy, smoky on the nose. Thank you, Candy. Yeah, woodsy and smoky. There's a little tea, kind of an Earl Grey. Black tea, just a black tea. Maybe more Earl Grey, yeah. And there's that woodsy element. There is a definite smokiness. So when you get some of that woodsy, smoky, and you get a little bit of a lighter color, maybe we're dealing with Syrah. That's a possibility. An earthy element to go with that woodsy. When you say woodsy, Candy, what are you thinking? Are you thinking kind of like bark? Are you thinking sort of pine needle smell, like being in a forest? Are you thinking trees with leaves that are decomposing around them and sort of a humusy forest floor? What is it that you're referencing when you say woodsy? Yeah, there's a lot of not too much in the way of fruit, is there? There's a lot of unique kind of subtle secondary or so-called tertiary characteristics to the nose. Campfire ashes, Kristen. Thank you for that too. Yeah, definitely. That the morning after kind of ash. Are you getting a little bit of vanilla, Robert? That's cool. So you're picking up maybe a little tiny bit of an oak note and a fresh sweetness that Chris has thrown out there. Yeah, there is an earthy freshness, a bit of a sweetness, but not like in a confectionery way. Like we've tasted wines where the fruit profile smells kind of sweet. Candied fruit. It's not necessarily that. There's sort of I don't know. Yeah, an earthy sweetness. There's a plumpness to the aroma. Candy's answering my question about what woodsy meant to her, but more burnt wood, not pine. So it's not a pine element. It's just sort of the amalgam of forest, decomposing trees and leaves and branches and burnt elements, and yeah, it's got a lot of that smoke element is less kind of tobacco smoke and more that burnt wood smoke. And back to that idea of campfire ashes from Kristen. So yeah, you could smell this for a while. It is almost its own kind of campfire outdoor camping like experience just through smelling it. Smoldering wood. More wood smoke, fired wood descriptors, which are good. All right, so that takes us to potentially where, folks? We're talking about mostly earthen notes and some wood notes. Anything fruit-oriented? And Jan's kind of asking that question. Fruit. It's port-like, Jen says, on the nose, so more of a raisin fruit. I love these earthen descriptors of the forest floor on a cool, wet summer day. It's fantastic. This is where the wine has that power, especially when we move past sort of that fruited note into the secondary notes or characteristics of a wine. They have the power of memory. They have the power to evoke a sense of place, a place that you've been in a moment in the past, and that's where these wines become transporters. They take us places just by sniffing, which is awesome. Yeah, okay, Jen, thank you for that. I mean, power suggestion, yes, but it's starting to kind of emerge as I'm swirling a touch. There is a fruited quality, and it is more raisiny. Which takes you kind of more to the idea of a warmer climate. So this might be a thinner skinned grape, but in a warmer climate, somewhere perhaps more Mediterranean, something like that, that has some alcohol to it. The legs are forming and lasting for quite a bit as they drip. Sort of the second and third ones fall with speed, but not super fast, and they maintain. So we might have a little bit more moderate plus alcohol. So let's find out. Let's taste this wine and see if we can't verify some of the things we're smelling and seeing. So right off the bat, before you try to put together thoughts on anything, do you have an initial impression? Gosh, this is X place, X varietal. This reminds me of a wine I had somewhere along the line. Does any of that come to the fore at this point? Chris, I'll table your note there just for a second. But as we taste and continue to taste week after week, in the beginning phases of this, I sort of had you just sort of record those thoughts. But as you begin to train yourself more and more, and you connect your olfactory sense with your sense of the palate, so your sense of aroma and your sense of taste, and then you bring those together with a collective series of experiences in this chat, but also in just your general wine drinking, some of those recessed kind of ideas or concepts of wines will emerge when you taste another one. And that ability for the wine to transport you to a place is something to pay attention to. It's not something to necessarily glom onto and stick to and then try to prove, but it is something to adhere to. Are you getting an intuition, a sense of this wine? Chris is saying he gets a bunch of candied cherry, and that was liked. Chris Shirley, that is, and Chris Rutten is getting, or is noting that there are no tannins, and that's a nice thing for a change. I like a wine with a little bit lower tannin too, so especially on a lovely kind of spring, early summer type day. It's tart. The fruit is yeah, it has a candied quality to it. Kind of Luxardo cherry, the cherry you might use in a Manhattan. It's got this kind of crisp, candied outside and more of a fleshy inside. Beautiful. Jan, you're picking up a little bit of tartness. Jan is picking up, or her first thought was Merlot, and that's a neat idea. What else are you finding, folks? Anything rushing to you? Lighter bodied, that cherry element. Chris, you're saying Blaufränkisch. That's pretty cool. Blaufränkisch, Blauburgunder. So Pinot Noir or Blaufränkisch. Yeah, cranberry elements, licorice, cherry. It does taste like, initially I thought we were dealing, just based on appearance and some of that cherry note, that we might be dealing with Pinot, we might be dealing with Nebbiolo, especially with that kind of tawny to orangish rim. I don't have quite the right light to see if this is casting orange, but if it was, we could be talking about some Sangiovese. It has an orangish element there, maybe Sangiovese, but as Chris Rutten put out there, it's not really tannic. So taste New World for Chris Shirley. The wine was decanted for 45 minutes at this point, so it's not as tart, but smoother, a bit cooked fruit, maybe cherry or like a little craisin. So that cranberry note in the dried form from Kristen. It's pretty mellow. Yeah, I just opened mine and it's pretty mellow right out of the bottle. It doesn't have a whole bunch of tannin. It's pretty easy going. I mean, it could be If we're thinking New World, what varietals are you guys thinking? And if we're thinking Old World, same question. There's just kind of an ample cherry quality to this. A tiny bit medicinal, tiny bit licoricey. The Not as much of that sort of woodsy smoke on the palate. Anybody else getting that smokiness? It's mostly aroma, isn't it? And Allison, you're picking up a lot more of the tart quality. Quite a few of you have noted a real tartness, and very few things can be more tart than a raw cranberry. Jen was certainly venturing to say a South African Shiraz. I'm not so sure. If this is Shiraz, like it's very easygoing. I like the Syrah idea too, from that smokiness. So this is very easygoing Syrah. Could it be something like Mencia? Could it be something like well, Pinot Noir, Syrah, kind of that Nebbiolo element. Mencia, perhaps. The Merlot that Jan had put out there first. Shiraz. But Pinot, kind of that, when you say licorice to me and you say cherry and very low to moderate, very low to low plus kind of tannin, really low tannin actually. I mean, Pinot Noir is just a solid guess. Valpolicella, thank you, Swanbergs. Yeah, Valpolicella blend. So Corvina, Molinara. I mean, and just kind of a basic, not sort of a Ripasso style or Reserva style. This is just Valpolicella. It could be that. Yeah, it's not Ripasso at 25. I agree with you there, Chris. And I think we'd have more concentration, a little bit more raisiny element. We have a little hint of that raisin. So maybe just Valpolicella. Wow, I went through that one fast. The texture is so pleasing, being just sort of soft and easy. It went down really quick. Ooh, it's quite a deal more earthy. Tempranillo, Eric is throwing out there. I mean, normally you'd get a little bit more tannin, but this could be kind of a nice, fun Crianza Tempranillo that just is easygoing. You get some of that vanilla note, some of that smokiness coming by way of the oak that it's in, perhaps, as opposed to the varietal. And Kristen, yeah, it is good. It just kind of it's pleasing. From kind of that sweet earthen smell on the nose right off the bat, which was really inviting, comforting in a way, to the actual palate, which is silky. It's smooth, right? We're talking about what kind of acid here? Medium plus. It's not high acid, but it is definitely medium or medium plus, right? And low tannin. It's got a richer body. This is a medium weight wine. So and it's kind of building, isn't it? In terms of its roundness. It's not as light as it leads on. Certainly as it aerates a touch more. That raisiny element. Maybe what if it's like Montepulciano or something like that from Italy. That could be kind of fun. Just an easygoing, really pleasing Italian red. From the New World side of things, Chris Shirley, you mentioned that it was New World. Where are you thinking? Were you thinking Blaufränkisch from the New World? I know you also said that was your initial impression too. Medium acid, thank you, Jan. I agree on that. Tempranillo, could this be Spanish? The wood's coming out a little bit more on the second pour. There's a little bit of a Zinfandel quality Chris is noting. And when you say that, Chris, what do you mean? What are you smelling that or tasting that indicates sort of Zinfandel for you? kind of it's intriguing because I'm not set on any one place. I could make an argument for sort of a richer Central Coast Californian Pinot. I could make an argument for an Italian kind of Montepulciano. I don't know that I could make as strong an argument for Mencia as I said sort of initially, but it has some elements there. Could I make an argument for Syrah? If I did, where from? I just don't know. I don't know of tasting this in the way that suggests Syrah beyond that sort of smokiness. It's more like the Syrah element was thought of because of smokiness, but Gotcha, Chris. He was referencing the California's in before that he had prior to this, and that was maybe tainting his impression of this wine, but also maybe leading him in that direction as there were some similarities. This is throwing me off a touch too. I think. Oh, sorry, Jan. You had mentioned Carignan before. Carignan, I think, would be a bit more. Where this is pillowy, Carignan would be a little bit more block, brick-like. It would have more defined angles and boundaries to it. It would have a little bit more rusticity generally to it. It wouldn't be quite as soft. I think it would have a little bit more tannin. And so I'm not sure that we would be in the Carignan camp. Some of the aroma is coming on, the wood's coming on more now. So that vanilla element it was a hint in the beginning. Now there's a coffee quality to it. Do you get anybody else get sort of that roasted coffee bean? Not coffee the drink, but more the roasted bean. So we had that charred wood, that smoldering ember. We had some of the smoky elements. I think that's the wood treatment here, which makes Tempranillo all the more interesting if sort of an American oak is being used and charred heavily. Eric is throwing out Grenache. Yeah, I mean, Grenache could be here. A light GSM, Christian saying. And good evening to you, Kathy. We are into a wine that is medium weight, medium plus acid, very low tannin. Rustic more on the nose, kind of tertiary in the nose. There's a little bit of a cherried quality to it, but then it moves into some smoke, burnt charred ember. It has some kind of definite smoky cooked wood kind of quality to it. Jan's picking up a little toasted Jan Nelson is picking up some toasted roasted nuts, and Jan Burst is picking up some chocolatey notes. So we're getting into sort of a candied fruit to tart fruit spectrum, where there's a little bit of candied cherry, kind of kind of cocktail cherry, if you will, Luxardo cherry, and then all the way into sort of cranberry that was both tart and dried, stewed fruit now. So it's kind of a little bit all over the map. It doesn't help you get to a particular place. And I've already finished the second glass. It goes down easy. This is a very fun wine. All right, folks, what do you think? You're getting cocoa on the back end too? Cocoa, I mean, could we be doing something like Nero d'Avola or David Pearson saying it's mellowing a touch for him as it breathed a bit. Yeah, so it came out pungent, a little bit tart, but it is dissipated a bit. And I think also, too, your palate kind of adjusts to that tartness and accepts it and modulates it a touch, and so that it is a little less austere or drastic in your taste. It's getting earthier. It's getting a little bit... a touch of baby diaper. I don't know. Raisinets candy. That's pretty cool. So you get the raisiny element and the chocolate together. There's burnt sugar now and kind of a confectionery note, and I'm missing where that all puts together. And I'm kind of trying to contemplate where you get that burnt sugar, that wood note, that kind of char, and what fruit component would come with that and such a low level of tannin. I mean, maybe a very easygoing Shiraz from Australia. Some of those cocoa notes, some of those raisiny notes, you get some richness. And Allison, yeah, baby diaper is not the best descriptor for a wine. I apologize for that, but it happens. And as I've said before, it's one of the only things the wine is in the world where you smell a baby diaper and dirty sweat socks, and you're like, I'll have another glass. So I find this delightful. So Jan's saying Merlot for her. Where are you going to go with Merlot, Jan? Like what place in the world? Wow. That candied fruit element, now with that earthen element, playing back and forth. Some tannin, it's just starting to happen, which is so weird because it was not there in the beginning. This wine is 26 minutes old for me, and it's really changing a little bit and developing quite a different profile. Italian Pinot Nero. Cool. That's a cool idea. From sort of the Piedmont, be a bit more structured. I'm getting a little more tannin now. That's fascinating. That acid is kicked in a touch too. Jan is saying she's going back to kind of Merlot from California. Candy's saying Syrah from California. That's cool. Syrah from California. I haven't had one from California that would have had this level kind of that smoky notes, but I mean, Forest Fire Syrah from California, that could be very interesting. That's something to account for. So maybe. It does have ripeness, and so maybe we're drinking like a Central Coast Syrah. What if we're drinking like a Syrah from a warm climate? So a New World Syrah. I think that's probably where I'm most comfortable at the moment. New World Syrah being perhaps South African Shiraz that was noted earlier, an Australian Shiraz that is not full-blown Barossa kind of heavyweight power. Maybe we're talking California. It does have that sort of sun-kissed, delightful, ripe, juicy tastiness to it. That is more New World, as was noted before. The cherry notes there, and that's turning into chocolate cherry. And Chris, you're definitely pretty well versed on Central Coast Syrah, so you don't think so. This is probably the most I have gone through in any particular wine that we've tasted thus far. I'm definitely finding the fruit and that smokiness to be a compelling kind of duality in this wine. And now it's becoming so familiar, and I'm having a hard time placing that familiarity. That question I asked of you, was there an intuition that you could put a pinpoint on? And I'm not getting to that point of having the ability to pinpoint that. For Pato is an interesting question from Kathy. It could be. Yeah, I threw out Nero d'Avolo too. I mean, just having something sort of Sicilian. It has that earthy element and some smokiness, so volcanic element. It has a pretty good amount of acid. I don't know. Schiavia, I don't know how to be able to say for sure whether that'd be Schiavia. That's an interesting call too. If that was the case, it'd be a wonderful learning wine. All right, folks, what do you think? Let's start working our way toward a place and a varietal. Jan's gonna be hitting on either California 18 or maybe South American Merlot. Chris, you are coming toward a guess about somewhere New World perhaps, but are you still thinking of Zinfandel? The candy qualities are there. They're not overwhelming, they're just present. And they're more sugared than candied, like syruped. For me, it's like the Luxardo cherry. Like it's got that kind of almost a candied shell, but it's really about soaking it in that syrup and then that beautiful sugared profile that is sweet but also pure in flavor of cherry. Jan Burst is saying Pinot Noir. Italian Merlot for the Swanbergs. Okay. That's good. It's getting more structured. Are you finding that too? For those of you that have had this open for a while, does it have a bit more structure? It's not super tannic, but Chris Rutten, for example, you noted that it was not tannin or very low tannin to begin with. It's not high tannin by any means, but there's more of it right now. The Merlot element, I think we would get more plummy elements perhaps. But some of that tart fruit here works toward that, I suppose. And the wood elements here are very, very aggressive on the char, which you don't necessarily find as much with Merlot. I like the Primitivo call a lot there, Chris. That's a good one. More than Zin. But he's going to go with Blaufränkisch with the caveat that he doesn't think he's right. So I like Primitivo a lot. I'm trying to reconcile that candied fruit element into Syrah, and I'm not sure I can. And so maybe, and my initial impression was that we were somewhere in Italy, but not in Nebbiolo as we tasted it. I was thinking that potentially first, and I don't think this is Sangiovese, but I think it is southern Italy, kind of riper quality. I was throwing Montepulciano out for a minute, but I like the Primitivo call too. And I don't know that I have, David, I'm with you there. I don't know that I have enough experience necessarily with what this probably is to be able to call it exactly. So I'm going to have to sit with, I'm going to go with something like Primitivo maybe. But I walked my way all over the place and really just stealing Chris's last thought there. But Southern Italian red varietal ripeness, some mineral volcanic-y soil, some heavily toasted oak, and 2018 relatively new wine, maybe 16, 17, maybe yes, we might be a little bit older, so maybe 16, 17, so 4 to 6 years of age. It's got a little bit of that tawnying element. This is a crowd pleaser because you could have a table of somebody who likes to drink Cabernet, somebody who likes Merlot, somebody who drinks Pinot, somebody who drinks New World, somebody who drinks Old World. You probably put on the table and nobody's exactly where they want to be, but everybody's like, well, I'm happy to be here. Quite a few of you are going with Blaufränkisch. That's cool. Blaufränkisch would be a nice guess. I generally tend to think it's got a bit more vervy acid. I know a lot of you found tartness here, but like just precision to it. And this just seems to be a little bit more lumbering. I could be wrong about that. So yeah, I'm going to say, I'll go Primitivo. I'll go Italy. So Southern Italy, Primitivo 2017. And we'll be happy to find out if it's Blaufränkisch or... Robert, that's awesome. You're going to say Bobal from Spain. Sorry, I just read your note there. That's fantastic. And Kathy's throwing out Schiavia from Italy and Trollinger from Germany. Yes. The Sanders are going Italian and Tuscan. So maybe a Bulgari kind of Merlot-based Tuscan blend. That could be very tasty, right? You could have had some of these notes, and that's where we didn't talk too much about a potential blend. And a blend, I mean, although the Swanbergs definitely threw out the Valpolicella blend. So a blend could give us some of this dimensional element that we're experiencing. Anybody else before we do this reveal? There's no indication on this bottle at this point. Oh, cool. Thank you, Chris. You helped me tremendously. I wouldn't have got there otherwise. Primitivo from Salento. This is 2019, though. It's brand new. So in IGT, it's about 13% alcohol. That is cool. I got a stab in the dark lucky on that one. This is tasty, huh? This is just one that you kind of want to drink. Half of it's gone already. So Primitivo, also thought to be the varietal that is linked to Zinfandel. This is something that that you see throughout the southern part of Italy, and I guess let's pause for a moment and kind of really focus on what made this Italian Primitivo as opposed to other things. What we can glean from that. I mean, Chris, you were really helpful today in terms of saying, I think I see some Zinfandel-like character, but then it had that earthen note, some of that smoky note. It presented cherry quality, and pretty much only cherry quality, that then moved slightly into raisiny elements. Really neat. And that's fun. I don't get any credit, Allison. I really don't. Not in this case. I was going to not be anywhere near. I was venturing toward Shiraz in Australia, for lack of a better guess. I was kind of noodling Syrah all around, and with not without the help of this group, would I have gotten close to that. So that's really great, and that's what's been fun about this, is that this group is getting really good at doing this, and collectively it's somebody puts out one idea and then someone else runs with it and takes it to another place, and then kind of gets bounced back and forth, and many of us come up with our guesses or our assessments through that process, which is really cool. I was blinded the other day just for fun, and it was just me, and I was like, I'm not good at this. I need 30 to 60 of my friends to be able to do this correctly. And so thank you all for participating again, and we'll continue to do it next week as we get to venture. I don't know, is next week white or red? I haven't had a chance to look, but next week will be fun. We'll get a chance to collectively hive mind this process one more time. I think I'm going to go finish this. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next Thursday.